I don't know if it was in the original Greek, but when he's talking to Cephas, it has it in quotations, and the quotations keep going until the end of the chapter. So I think all of this is him still talking to Peter. All of this is something that he's saying. So I don't think you can break it out, because I think it's all the still conversation.
N.T. Wright says that in the past, the church has tried to just cherry pick and pull that part out and just make it about something different, to just only talk about faith and works and not about the gospel, which is what Paul is telling Peter, don't forget about the crucifixion and resurrection.
What Melissa just said is, for me, my problem with this. Sorry, what you said was great, but what you said and G. Wright said, when he said the church tries to make it about justification and faith and not works, when it's really about the gospel and what Jesus did. To me, that's one story. Like what Jesus did on the cross, faith in him, we get justification through that. And that's why, these works where we try to earn our righteousness, our part in the kingdom, we never could have done that on our own. And so the gospel is the story of Jesus who came and did what we could not do.
Okay, so you're saying that when Wright says it's suddenly they're switching gears, you're saying that whatever Reformation Christians actually haven't switched gears, that
it's all one story. It's all one story.
Right. But N.T. Wright is saying it's not about how people get saved, which is the argument. People say this is how you get saved. And he's saying that's not what Paul's talking about. He's not saying you do this to be saved. He's saying don't forget the message, the real message, right. Which like you're saying, they're the same thing. But I was just quoting N.T. Wright because we're reading a book about him. I'm not for him or against him, but I see what you're saying.
No, we're all for N.T. Wright except for Hope. We're all for
He's
N.T. Wright.
Brilliant, but I think that he finds divisions and disagreements where there's not divisions and disagreements.
Well, I feel like I've heard conversations similar to this not taking place in the time of Paul and Cephas. Just, well, it's about works. Well, it's about faith. Well, faith without works is dead, and and it is missing the point.
So he's saying that we can't view 15 through 21 as a salvation debate when it's been a community debate. Like we can't go from ecclesiology to soteriology suddenly. And his big argument, from my perception, is breaking down the translation of the word justified. And I don't know if anybody else got into that, but that was the eureka thing for me this week. Because if and he gives his translation, and where we read and where the NIV and he says the RSV reads justified, he uses the term declared righteous. And I did notice in the Greek that the word for righteous, justification and righteousness have the same root, the dikaiosune root. And the banner or the drum that Wright is banging all the time is that the righteousness of God, the dikaiosune, is about coming into the family, the covenant membership. And so it's not a conversation about the stages of salvation, starting with justification and continuing into sanctification. For him, and he spends a lot of time talking about ancient documents, justification, or that root there, is much more about community inclusion than it is about the Reformation, post-Reformation view that it's being made righteous before God.
And I don't think that he makes a good case for that, because the word is the word that's used for righteousness anywhere in Scripture. And I think that there again, he's splitting hairs, and that is it about getting saved or joining the family? To me, that's one thing. You join the family and you're saved. And also, I have to pull up from Acts 15, which is when Paul and Peter and Barnabas are having this discussion about Gentiles versus Jews, it says very clearly, Acts 15:1, certain people came down from Judea to Antioch and were teaching the believers, unless you are circumcised according to the custom taught by Moses, you cannot be saved. And then that follows the whole discussion, which is the same discussion that's here in Galatians, which shows that the crux of this false theology of having to get circumcised, of having to follow the Torah laws, was about getting saved, which is the diakonesis or whatever, being righteous, being part of the family. I think it's one thing.
He's describing something that I never felt like it was separate at all.
His whole point is that people are separating it out.
Yeah.
He's saying if we believe that Jesus is the Messiah and we are saved through faith in him, then stop drawing hard lines between people and saying you're not saved if you don't do A, B, C. He's saying you can't do that. They were supposed to be one community, but they're not behaving that way, which is why there's a distinction being drawn, and he's bringing clarity to it, I think. And I think his whole point is we should all believe the same thing, which saves us all, you know?
Except no, because N.T. Wright's saying it's not about salvation. My problem is that N.T. Wright is saying that this discussion is not soteriology. And to me, it is, because the ecclesiological issues are soteriological.
Right. Yeah. Or for normal humans, inclusion in community and getting saved are paired together. They're not separated. And so maybe looking at the glass half full. Wright is just putting a greater emphasis on the community aspect, thinking that that's Paul's primary emphasis, and the salvation stuff goes along with it. Maybe the reformers just focus almost exclusively on salvation, us versus the Roman Catholic Church that has substituted indulgences for circumcision or whatever.
We get caught up in things like who says what about what, and if it's right, and we break things apart. And I think we tend to forget the big picture that Jesus is the Messiah.